important to me is really important to you. Like what is really important to all people, you know? The air we breathe matters to me. The very same colors, the same frequency. That vibe.
When you step out, cross down the river alone, life will be there, not a place of stone under feet. When you jump out, hey, with the courage to dream, life will always be sharp in the breeze. Underneath your wings,
Are you filming?
Totally.
We're off?
We're just shooting something.
And you can kind of like just like take this kind of like drum out and then this is fun. And then what we did with this track is just brought in Mr. William the violinist and see how that goes. Will's so talented, man. It's like that's just him playing live in the RV. He stood right here to record that. Yeah, so this is like the on the road studio. So we just got like a really basic studio setup, and what we're going to be doing is heading to Miami overland, you know, from LA, and just meeting, because every time you travel you always meet the most amazing characters, right? Like whether you're traveling like as a musician or not. And what we're doing now is like just collaborating and embracing people with music. So the name of the next single is called Embrace, and the whole concept of this project is to embrace people through music and just see what happens. You know what I mean?
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So.
and in those dark seas, when you're on your own, you will learn, hey, now to find your home in your soul. For there will be, hey, a light beam for your eyes. There will be a light beam for your eyes to see, for your eyes to see, for your eyes to see. Stay open in life now. There's a river, and it's working all the time to deliver. Hey, we have to let go. It's not in our control. And not trust in her flow. Yeah, in the river. Whichever path in this life that you choose, yeah. Nothing to lose, nothing to prove. Left in life, nothing to know. There will be no inspiration and nowhere to grow. The struggles to find us, yeah. They help now to guide us. Win or lose to gain this way. Your choice at the end of the day. Or you may have roamed in these great jet planes, or died up high and see escape fame. Just gives you responsibility, yeah. Not just for you and not just for me, but all kind, all humanity. So light it up, just light your own beam, so all eyes can see it. The river that flows, stay open in life now. There's a river, and it's working all the time to deliver. Hey, 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 we've got to let go. It's not in our control. You're not trusting your flow in the rivers.
to make music?
Initially, you know, the first kind of desire that I felt to write music, if that's the right word, motivation came from being in a world that like I would see like unjust things happening, and that kind of really fueled me to, you know, put that into a composition and relate to other people, and almost like searching to see if anyone else is concerned about these issues, you know, be like, does anyone else see this, you know, like, does anyone else feel this heartache for, you know, exploitation of children? And, you know, I was pretty well educated, you know, I have 3 sisters that are all very, you know, conscious about the planet, and the processes that happen, both from a philosophical perspective, and also, you know, just from real experience, you know, reality of, you know, from their trips away from home, they would come back with these stories, and you know, real life stories of people and what was happening. I always felt that. So one of those things was with nature, you know, would be, you know, just the unjust way that nature is so exploited, and it always feels like kind of like the innocent part of the, you know, humans' kind of messy ways of doing things, you know. So that was one way that I felt, you know. I think initially it was kind of all about that. I had a band called Celestial Park, the celestial being, you know, the universe and the space, and like as if like a park on Earth is kind of like the Earth in space, you know, it's like a park, so Celestial Park. And it was all about world issues, you know, and we were like 16, 17 years old, and I was just an MC at that point, you know, and we would just write lyrics for days on end about all these, you know, fat cats laughing on the west side, in the east another newborn baby dies, and, you know, we were just, that was where we were coming from. But essentially that was still all about love, you know, or a lack of love. So just didn't recognize it as that at that point, you know. But that was basically, you asked me where I started writing, that was the initial kind of mission.
So I hear that since you were a child, you've been very intuitive, very empathetic, and empath. You know, people that surround your life, you just kind of absorb the energy, right? And so from that experience, at what point did you discover your music to transform parts of that pain that you felt?
Yeah, I mean, that's when it becomes really potent, isn't it? You know, because the truth is interesting, you know. So I don't remember the exact point, but I definitely, I was 19 years old when I went completely, just threw myself into the unknown. And when you throw yourself into the unknown, you learn to stand on your own 2 feet, you know, because you haven't got anyone else around to do those things. So there's a really beautiful kind of dichotomy, if you like, about that, with just not a dichotomy, sorry, hold on. There's a really beautiful symphony with having an experience that forces you to be, you know, it's can be so raw and so difficult to go through, but ultimately forces you to find the hero in you, you know. And that comes from being alone, like you find a friend in yourself, you know. If you are traveling and you've got no one else, you discover, you know, the light in you to kind of guide your own way, you know. So definitely music from my own pain, for that sense of loneliness that I would discover at times. And then you learn that you're never actually alone. And then a lot of my music was writing about, you know, this colorful vibration that will always accompany you, which is this greater goodness in life that I believe in, that is in you, it's in all beings, it's in all of us. And that colorful vibration is also like the will of life wanting to survive, and I felt like that, just that energy force, call it spirit, call it what you will, became a big inspiration for my music too.
So at 19 you left.
Yeah, I went around the world at 19. Yeah,
Wow.
for 2 years straight. Just.
Where did you go?
I mean, I was very fortunate. You know, I was able to travel through the work that I was doing at the time, and really discovered the true power of my music. That those 2 years, I think, I would have discovered it, but it may have taken longer because I was forced to survive. You know, you've grown up in the societies that we were privileged enough to have. You know, you have life guides, you have people that care about you, you have, you know, and although you can go through, you know, you can be inspired by your realities wherever you are in the world, you know, but there was just something really mystical about this travels that I was exposed to, and it really made me a great communicator with all the people that I met on the journey. So I was in Japan, you know, and music was the only real way I could talk to people, you know, like there was no other language, and I just like would notice that if I had a guitar with me, like it was like an instant kind of like access to like whoever I would be with, and that included like a lady and her family, like, and her husband that I met in Japan. We could not understand a word of our dialects between us, but you just play like One Love by Bob Marley and they recognize that song, or maybe they didn't, and I had to actually, no, the Beatles, they hadn't heard of the Beatles, and that continued through Asia and Thailand and so on and so forth. But yeah, I traveled those 2 years. I was non-stop, so it was like Indonesia, Australia, New Zealand, you know, into the Pacific Islands, and yeah, just a lot of writing.
Yeah. So in that experience, you say that music is a universal communicator for you, and for you to go and connect with people. And it is a universal language. Do you also believe that music is a language of love? And
absolutely it is, yeah.
Have you connected and in your personal life fell in love from music?
Yeah, I mean, I've written so many songs, you know, in my lifetime, and it's like as I backtrack like through the catalog, it's just like, of course, you know what I mean. Whatever's filling your heart, is gonna fill your music. So if there's a love loss, that's, you know, that's present in your heart, that's gonna be fully present in your music. That's not the only thing that I feel like has affected my heart, you know, over the years is like my personal relationships. But yeah, of course, I mean, from a love loss, like a greater understanding remains. So ultimately there's, in that perspective, there's nothing lost, but the music becomes the salvation, the music becomes the savior. You know, when shit is really difficult, you know, music will rescue me, and music rescues so many of us in that way, because it's a salvation, it's a way of understanding these inevitable processes of loss, so that we can understand the benefits of the loss, you know, that it gives us thicker skin, basically, and it makes us more aware for the next situation that presents itself in our lives. beautiful being able to express this through words, but ultimately music is, words are limited, that's why we have music, you know, so.
Never give that up.
And you know, love lost makes you really trust, you know,
Yeah.
because you just have to. It's so much. It's acceptance of just that, whatever, you know, is in the divine flow. There is a bigger picture playing out. You know, I wrote a song called River, which is all about, you know, stay open in life now. There's a river, and it's working all the time to deliver. Got to let go, it's not in your control, you know, stay open in your road. So it's like you have to trust that the way things unfold are, you know, are working in, conspiring, you know, in favor of what is best for you, which ultimately is a hard thing to master.
And when you are in these states of feeling the pain and embracing the pain, what is your music process with putting it into lyrics?
It's meditative, you know, you sit down, you go into it, you embrace it, fully embrace it. It's like you can't go around it. So that's why, you know, normally artists are quite emotional people, because to have that, you got to have that emotional vulnerability to be able to feel that depth, you know, to be able to write about it, you know, like it's the experience. It's like being a wounded healer, you know, like you're in a much better position to help someone with you know, their back pain. That's all that.
To you in the midst of the manic street life, reminded for the moment that it's good to be in the though this world left him astray, still believes in the light of a better way. Yeah, it's the smile behind the pain. It's the courage.
About that, you know, part of the magic of music is that, like, initially all music is completely unique and spontaneous, you know, like there has to be the spark before the flame, you know, there has to be that moment of just creation, and that's the moment that's really exciting, is that initial it's like the initial creation of the sound. So you can just be like kind of playing music when it's in tune. You just find yourself kind of like, you hear like deep up and you just play whatever it is that you're thinking. And sometimes it just comes to you, you know, and you just get this like really beautiful kind of like vision of exactly what that feeling is, and just put it into a song. And this is after I split up with my girlfriend, we had, you know, this really profound kind of, you know, everyone relates to that just like desire to be back in that person's arms, because you have a sense of identity of home with that person, you know. I just decided to celebrate what was instead of what was lost, you know. And the lyrics to this one was, because I was thinking before I sing it, you know, like what can you do? Like, are you just gonna choose to like dwell in the negative aspect of what was lost, or are you just gonna like stride on and just like be able to still love life itself, you know? Because we can love so much in life. We don't just love like within the relationship with a person, you know. We love, and we have to love with all our heart, you know. And that whole expression, like your heart is with someone else, like that's beautiful and romantic, but like a little bit of your heart has to be with you, you know. Otherwise, you know, how are you gonna love yourself, right? Which goes.
Call it harmony, some call it symphony, the simple connection of two souls. You see, the world turns as we all live and learn. They're teaching me my lessons on the road. After all, what can we do? Love now with all your heart. Oh, come on and get your best foot down. Lord knows the road is tough, yeah. We all got to work it out. I say, love now with all your heart. I say, come on and get your best foot down. Lord knows the road is tough. We all got it now.
Yeah, so that kind of came from that whole, just, what are we going to do? Just dwell in it, and that doesn't serve anything, and it's that, you know, my parents always said, you know, worrying is a temptation, but it's not a solution for anything. Like, it just doesn't serve you. So ultimately, what can we do? We have to strive forward. There is no option of going back. So that's a gift of love in itself, you know, just the fact that it makes us realize how that, you know, we have to, ultimately acceptance is surrendering. So love is surrendering, love is acceptance, love is not resistance, you know. And as we said earlier, that can also mean like ultimately loving someone, which was my situation, you know. I had to let that person go because I realized that like I wasn't able to serve them to be the best of themselves on their journey within the process of what they were living at that moment in time any longer. Which is kind of tragic, you know, that you have all these feelings for someone, but you just can't. Ultimately, your honesty has to, you know, if you're in those cycles that are repeating, and it's much bigger than you. Humans are great at taking everything so personally, you know, but there's things that are unfolding in both your lives, like the evolution of your spirits, you know, where you're at, that you don't have to get personal about that. That's just that person's process, and, you know, ultimately it's better to love them from allowing them to follow their path alone until they find that sense of balance, and you find that sense of balance within yourself, you know.
So I hear there's almost like a graceful type of love, because to leave them be, to have two parallel lives so that both can discover their process rapidly through being apart than being together. That in a way is the most humble type of love.
Yeah, of course. Like that.
After all, what can we do? Got to love now with all your heart. Say, oh, come on and get your best foot out. Lord knows the road is tough, yeah. We all got to work it out. Say, love now with all your heart. Say, come on and get your best foot out. Lord knows the road is tough, yeah. We all got to work it out. Follow me, yeah. Taking my hand, oh, sitting back to the land.
It's truth. Truth is beautiful, so it becomes less about you as the musician and more about like what are we connecting into here, you know? Let's just connect with truth, allow that to be present, and then people relate, you know? And that's all we have to really do. There is no like, because it becomes very dominated by, oh, he's so incredible, and we're incredible. Like, that's the first start, you know? So a lot of people, we've been able to home in on different skills from, you know, whatever situations in our life, but and I'm getting into like thinking about the kids in Brazil, which is a whole other part we wanted to talk about. But
yes, let's talk about that.
yeah?
Yes. So the Brazil project, that was your second LP, right?
Yes.
And could you talk to us about how, where you were, what did you see, and as a result, what inspired you to produce that whole album?
Yeah, so essentially, like, Brazil knocked me for six, which in a very English manner of speaking is just like really blew open my perception and just inspired me beyond belief. And what really inspired me down there was like, firstly was just this discovery of, you know, like a very vibrant nature surviving in a very urbanized, like that conflict between the urbanization and Mother Nature, and you got like these like roots breaking up through the concrete, you know, and you can really feel that, like, you know, kind of powerful conflict of those two energies. And obviously I just was so just blissed out in the heat and the fruit and the tropics down there, you know, and just like, but also felt like this struggle for one of the world's most prestigious ecosystems, like struggling to, you know, battle with this like expanding, you know, population, you know, and amongst all that you've got these young street living beautiful princes and princesses that are, you know, growing up in this ever-changing world that's so unpredictable and so dangerous in so many places, you know, and vastly kind of like overrun with drugs and arms trade and all of those just heavy kind of underground industries, if you can call them that, you know. And
did you witness any personally?
yeah, of course. I mean, you know, I basically peeled back the layers in Brazil over 11 years, you know. So it's like, you know, just kept going deeper and deeper until I found myself like just right at the center of, you know, in the darkest places with those children, trying to just like understand the best way in which I could, you know, bring a light to that place. And of course that was with the music. And the children in Brazil inspired the whole project. Basically, I would be out in the street and just be greeted by, like, with such grace and dignity, you know, and such maturity, like the type of maturity that I'd never seen, like, in a 7-8-year-old in my life. Because, you know, 7-8-year-olds in the country that I grew up at, like in primary school, and need to be home by a certain time and tucked up in bed, and these kids are literally alone, right, in like the middle of a freeway where there's like prostitution and like trafficking and police and people like in all kinds of like conflict, and you've got these like 7-8-year-old children that are just like surviving in that space, and they're so incredibly you know, just inspirational and courageous. So courageous, man. They're just like, they're not like dwelling on, you know, like, or complaining about anything. They're just getting on with it, like recognize, you know, and fully value, they fully value and appreciate the little that they have. So I basically had a love affair with, you know, the nation, in that sense of just like just a total appreciation of the courage of the people that had nothing but appreciated the little that they had, you know. So they lived almost a more wealthy existence than those people that were living in sky-rise buildings and skyscrapers and high-rise buildings, you know, just because they really appreciated and they celebrated life, and they celebrated life through music. And then as soon as I kind of like, you get a guitar out and these kids would be like, and just like on stones, and Ei, menina, eu vejo na passa do mal, na passa da guerra, nunca vai, nunca dê mal. And just go off, and you're like so full of like, just like, give me one chance, give me one chance, give me one chance, and I come and sing and I bring the music. Give me one chance, man, and we never can confuse it. Give me just one chance, you know. And we would just like start writing music there and then, and that's what happened with that whole project. So the names of the songs, Favela Queen, Prince of the Sun, they were all after these real life heroes that I met like out in the streets, who were just genuinely real life heroes, not the guys on Hollywood that we see running out of buildings, and like the real genuine like heroes of our world, you know, that still after all their pain and all their exploitation put a courageous smile out there that's just like, you know, is just powerful. So, and I'm like, why is the world not focusing on, you know, the education of our children? Why is cigarettes and chocolate and coffee like a priority to invest in? Because that's what happens, and those are billion-dollar industries. Why is not the education of our children? Because it's not like it's isolated, you know. It's not like if you know, people think, oh, if you know, it's not my responsibility, okay, you know, if I don't educate children in Africa or Brazil or India, wherever it is, or even in your own country, like outside of your town. Or the point is that like, if people are not educated, it affects the well-being of the planet. There is one planet that we're all living in, you know. It's one economy essentially, it's one ecosystem essentially, and if we don't educate the people of this world, if we don't all take responsibility to educate ourselves, you know, and educate others, then there's just no way that we're going to be able to co-create and cultivate like a sustainable future together. So hell yeah, it's our responsibility to help those children that are willing to, you know, be educated, that are willing to learn, and they just haven't been given a chance. So that project was really about just was bringing a message to the world of just how, you know, easy it is to bring a light of hope to a child's life that just needs to happen once, like just a simple touch of love in that child's life to be able to create a chain effect for that individual to go on to respect himself, love himself, and therefore not abuse with drugs, not get into trafficking, and not, you know, and just follow healthy addictions.
And tell your story through the Brazil Life project.
Yeah, and that will be going on for the rest of my life. You know, that project is something that I'm going to be continually supporting. The reason that I am motivated to be an artist is not because I want to win a Grammy or be on the front of the magazine, which is all great. That's all a consequence of you know, delivering your music well and reaching people and touching people. Fine, you know, touching you know, people's lives in that way. But really what inspires me is, you know, having met Michael Franti, Jack Johnson, Ben Harper, and many others, and playing music with those guys, you can see that the leverage that you have when you have a huge following is what's inspirational. The influence you can have on, you know, these you know, these types of projects that are so influential to people's lives, to the well-being of the planet. You know, if you want to fundraise $20 million, you know, it's not that difficult to do if you have 1 billion followers, you know, on the internet, and use that money by all means to create positive change on the planet. You know, how cool is that? You know, invest in the, you know, preservation of ecosystems, the rainforest, the Congo. You know, invest in education. Like, your platform is like, you know, how many thousands of people are reading your posts. You know, that's awesome. Like, you're able, that's the part of this that drives me to be a success, so I can go to Brazil and, you know, help a whole community of people just by having that that leverage, you know, that's what motivates me to do well with all of this. And it is all about bringing people love, you know, on a massive level.
Now, Moby once said that, you know, well-adjusted people tend not to make music, and, you know, you make a lot of music. So in a lot of ways, do you find yourself thinking differently than the normal, quote-unquote, status quo population out there, the non-musicians? Do you ever find yourself as like the black sheep or the odd duck in a crowd? Has that ever felt like that?
Yeah, you know, it's an interesting question, isn't it? I mean, initially it brings up to me, obviously I only understand my own perspective through my own perspective, you know what I mean? Because I haven't ever had anything outside it. None of us have, you know. I would say that there's been a hell of a lot of sacrifices, and you find yourself, you know, it definitely affects your relationships, you know, because the calling is so strong when you need to be producing, or the calling is so strong to get there and to make it, that you know, you sacrifice your time with those people close to you. I mean, right now, you know, I'm on the other side of the world from my family, and I hardly see them, but they're behind me because they know the truth and the love and the light in my music, and I am just following that path. But yeah, it's a hell of a lonely path at times, you know. It's like you're filled with hope from, you know, meetings, you know, projects like, you know, that you guys are doing, that with the love story, and you meet inspirations as you travel around the planet, that, you know, and there's goodness in all people. That's what I believe. I'm so inspired, you know, and there's just this movement happening, and it's not necessarily just with music, it's with well-being. People are recognizing, you know, in many ways, like how we can't continue this kind of a whole overconsumptuous way that we're living in the planet. So, you know, there's a movement that's happening which I feel really honored to be a part of. But essentially, like, the odds often seem like really against that movement, you know, and that's because there is more fear than love present in a lot of the areas of our world, you know. And when there's more fear present than love, you know, that's when you know, projections happen, and we start manifesting that fear. We manifest. We're all master manifestors. We're all master creators. Each one of you has the power to completely change your reality, and therefore has the potential to contribute to changing the world however way you want to vision it. That's just the reality of who we are as beings. So if you have fear about, you know, how things are in the world, and you just allow that fear to dominate you instead of love, you'll be creating a more fearful planet, literally instantaneously, as you have that thought. So it's all about inspiring ourselves and others to just be fully present in love, you know, not fear, you know.
Thank you. You're so generous. Last question. In those moments, I'm hearing from what you just said is that the greatest battle is the battle within. And then from that within, we can spread the love. And a lot of your music is a high frequency vibrational music, like your colorful vibration, and you know, a lot of the songs in the Brazil Live project is very upbeat, and yet it still tells the story. So what is your process when you are feeling that pain, that, you know, the overwhelmingness of it all? You know, what is your process to kind of take all that negative energy and then turn it into something so beautiful that you've created, especially like the last two songs you showed me in the car?
Yeah, I mean, it really is just like, the process is like, it fills your heart firstly, you know, the experience really touches your being in a way, but the way the music kind of comes through is kind of, it's mystical, you know. It's like, you just have to, rather than like force it, you just have to trust and like fully open up. Like, I feel like the best moments the strongest moments, you know, is just when you're just allowing like yourself to just fully open through, and then this, you know, then the music comes through you in a more unconditional way. You know, if you're like, oh, maybe radio will prefer it more like more upbeat, yeah, I should do that more. You're already starting to condition something that was just a gift to you. Just let it come through. Whatever it is you're feeling, you know, just like, that's what I try and do, and that's really the process, and and I don't even think it can be explained, is the honest truth. That's why music has just got everybody so incredibly intrigued, you know. But it's definitely like the vibrational medium that connects all people, and that's why all people relate to it, because everything is resonance. Check out the Sing Hyman.
My name is Samuel O.J., and this is my love story. So it came. I too have lost in life to gain, so nothing ever really dies. It's coming back around like the tide.